All right. So what do we got with the whatever podcast, AJ?
So that was one that Peaches had sent in the group chat. I think it was something about women's oppression, if I remember correctly. The title of it is The Oppression of the Western Woman. If you want to go ahead and roll it, Brian kind of talks about what this clip setup is.
All right. So this is 19 minutes. I'm not going to play the whole thing.
You don't have to.
Okay. Do you want me to play a certain part of this?
You can just start playing the beginning of it.
Just tell me when to end it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to have you pause a couple of times. But the beginning and the workup into it is important to it. And then there's just a climax. And from there, it just falls apart.
Word. Go. Oh, wrong button. I thought I was being slick.
So the big spat that you had with John was about oppression. And you said you got quite...
Yeah, because I already know what you're gonna ask me, and I'm just gonna tell you this now. Google. You can
Google.
Look up Google.
Google.
But it's not my job to school you on something that you should have learned in school. Women have been oppressed, and women still are oppressed because there are literal child slaves. There are black women, disabled women that experience oppression all the time, and Native American women as well. And
Native American women.
It's also Native American men as well. Aren't they oppressed?
So go ahead and pause. So she is talking about oppression, and she's bringing in multiple factors. Children are oppressed. Black women are oppressed. Native American women, disabled women. Those are true. There are certain oppressions to those certain demographics. Would that be the word for that?
That is the word.
So that is true. There is also oppression for black men and disabled men and boys, boys. There's oppression there as well. So the conversation is, how are women, the gender itself, oppressed in America? So bringing in the other factors, I feel, devalues her argument a little bit. I just wanted to point that out. Also saying Google is a thing, that is true. Women's oppression can be Googled. If you can't give the solid points backing outside of saying you can also Google it and do your own research to form your opinion, that also weakens your argument.
Right. As she wants to talk about female slave labor and like young female children in the workforce, I'm willing to bet that she owns an Android or an iPhone.
Probably.
Yeah. And how do you think that that's made? So you can't make an argument about oppression and child slavery when you support products that actively utilize that to make the things that we consume.
Well, when you recognize that we're the consumer, these would not be made if we didn't buy them.
Right.
We are actively oppressing.
Right.
Americans as a whole are actively oppressing buying Apple and Android products.
It's the entire world, because people don't want to pay more money and it doesn't affect them because they're not the ones who are fucking being oppressed.
Yeah.
I would also like to point out before we move forward that there are no laws on the books that affect women differently than men or men that differently than women, or even in terms of color.
In America.
In America.
Yeah.
There are none. The only things that affect differently in America are things like affirmative action. And when you have issues in terms of Asian people going to Harvard because they're too smart and the test scores are raised much higher to make it harder for them to get in. There are discrepancies in equality, but there is no laws that separate any of that. That shit's done.
Right.
So that argument is a problem for me to begin with. Anything else before I continue?
No.
Okay. I really hate these kind of conversations.
Yeah.
Were you going to say
Hey,
something?
Chris, she's saying she's oppressed, but I believe, I can't remember if it was this episode or another one that I've seen. I believe she has an OnlyFans as well. So she's super oppressed as a woman while making money with just her body and not having to go to work.
That negates your entire argument.
It does.
Okay.
I'm talking about women right now.
You're talking about women?
Yeah, because the question was how women have been oppressed, and I'm just gonna say it's not my job to educate you and school you on that. And if you don't know,
if I reject your presuppositions, then you do need to explain to me.
No, I'm telling.
And that's exactly it. If you're going to have an argument with somebody and you can't explain your points and you can't actually articulate that, you don't need to be having that argument. You're regurgitating other shit that you heard with no foundation or understanding of the conversation being had.
I concur.
Okay.
Telling you this, I'm like, I'm telling you, like, it's not my job to school you. Like, you should have learned this in school. And honestly, it's a little scary that you don't know how women have been oppressed in the past, because, like, this country was, like, built for men, and these, like, laws and...
Ooh. Oh, my God. Okay. All right. This country was built by men. Not for men, by men.
Yes.
Our Constitution says that we have the right to the pursuit of happiness, not guaranteed happiness. And there was a whole lot of things that were fucked up at the beginning of this, because everything starts fucked up. You want to start a business, you're going to have a whole lot of trial and tribulation you got to get through. You want to start a relationship, you got a whole lot of trial and tribulation to get through. In terms of our country, we are 258 years old. We are fucking young. And we have corrected a whole lot of things in that time frame, right?
Yeah.
During that time frame, it was a man's duty to fight, kill, hunt, provide, and protect his women and children. So even if her argument was accurate and it was built for men by men so that men could thrive, it is our duty to make sure that you guys have everything that you fucking need. Now, whether or not men have those values is a different story. That comes down to the parenting in the home. The fact that there are more single, empty houses than not is a whole different conversation. But at that time frame, a man's duty was to lead his family. That was his job. It wasn't his woman's job to make sure that that there was fucking, food on the table or in the house.
Right.
It wasn't her job to go out and hunt and kill. It wasn't her job to go out and work. That wasn't a thing. So at that time frame, when you look at that, of course that fucking makes sense.
Right.
Because how are we going to make this the best country we have for our wife and kids? This is the conversation we're having. These conversations annoy the shit out of me.
Yeah. It is very, very empty conversation. There's no sustenance there. Even from the points that he makes, he has solid points that he does make. There's no backing or it's because of this. It's just, and I got you moment.
Right. And that's my problem.
Yeah.
You want to talk about the past. Cool. You can't change it. You can learn from it. You should study the fuck out of it to make sure that it doesn't repeat itself.
Right.
But do you think that all the shit that she's talking about right now that's happened in the last 250 years hasn't happened for the last 10,000 years all over the planet? Because it fucking has. The problem is this is not talked about because it's not part of the culture that's affecting our country right now.
Right.
All right. This whole thing is going to annoy the shit out of me. I can feel it.
Chris, remember that part in Billy Madison where he gives the answer and the moderator's like, "Thank you for that wonderful answer. Having listened to you, we are all now a little bit dumber."
Yeah.
Rules, like, all
Erroneous.
they all
Erroneous.
it's all to, like, for men, like, it was built for men. And, like, this podcast enough is showing me that
Trigger.
sexism is still really alive.
Can I ask?
Okay, so we went from oppression to sexism.
Right. Well, she's an OnlyFans worker. So she literally sells herself. So the sexism is already there. She does it to herself, if that's the case.
Yeah.
The question I have, though, is because she said that the fact that this podcast exists proves that there's sexism. Is this actual sexism, or is this just varying opinions and people who have a deeper understanding trying to have a conversation with idiots to prove that, like...
There's a lack of intelligence.
Right. Because I guarantee you that there are very intelligent women out there who have podcasts that do the same thing.
Yes.
This shit just annoys the fuck out of me.
Wow. You think this podcast is sexist?
I was posted on so many red pill incel accounts. Yes, it's giving incel a lot.
Oh, man. Okay, all the buzzwords are coming out. I don't even know where to start tackling this. Okay, so women were oppressed.
That chick to his left, clearly not impressed by anything that the chick just said. Did you see all of that? Like,
Yeah.
Okay.
In history.
Absolutely.
But so were men. It's
How?
not
Not as much as women
now
were.
this is interesting, because if I say how were women were oppressed, you're like, well, it's self-evident, Brian. I shouldn't have to educate you. Yet you've just asked me the same question. You've just asked, how were men oppressed? Shouldn't you know?
No, because that wasn't taught in school.
Pause.
Ah,
So her whole conversation was, I shouldn't have to school you. I shouldn't have to prove my point to you. It was taught in school. You should have paid attention. This is a you problem. And then flip reverse, like he was saying, don't you see how that contradicts? And she goes, well, it wasn't taught in school. So if females' oppression, women's oppression is taught in school, but males' oppression is not, where's the real oppression coming in?
So it's been a long time since I've been in school. When I was in school, we still had to pledge allegiance with God in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Is that not the case anymore?
It's not. It's been a very long time since I've done any schooling. But I remember learning about the struggles of man in terms of having to go to war and fight.
Yeah.
And the risk of being killed while you were hunting and like the horrible shit that men did to each other from arguing tribes and clans, you know, in terms of like Scottish, you know, the heritage, things like that. There's a lot of things that I learned about how horrible people were to each other.
Yeah.
That's just humanity. It's been like that since the dawn of us. It's us versus them. And if you're not part of us, you are part of them. And we're going to try to kill you. That's the way that it's always been. So why all of a sudden is it about the differences between he and her
Right.
when you're just part of them and I'm part of us, so let's continue to just try to kill each other? Like that's really what I get from all of this. I don't understand the logic in these arguments. And it doesn't solve anything.
Because there is no logic. This is an emotion-based argument. There has been oppression across humanity, like you were saying. Women have experienced oppression, men have experienced oppression. And like you said, history does teach the wars. That men were drafted into war. You didn't have a fucking option. Women didn't have to do that. That's a privilege.
That falls back into what I was saying earlier about a man's job to protect. And if that's the case, and it was written into the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and the Federalist Papers that it was our duty to be drafted and you were not, that solidifies my argument about the Constitution and the founding of our country being based off of us taking care of you.
Right. I remember what I was going to say. So she was pretty much giving off the air of the argument that it was taught in school. You didn't pay attention. You don't remember. This is a you problem. She said it wasn't taught in school. You go over the world wars. We talk about the drafts and how those are only for men, those kinds of things. So you didn't pay attention in school. This whole argument is bullshit. We can continue watching if you would like to.
I would really not like. I know that you have a whole lot of
Yes.
oppression conversation that would like to happen, but if I can not watch the rest of this, that would be great.
So it's not a whole lot of oppression conversation. I wanted to watch that because this is going to lead into, I'm going to do a series of a woman's call to action. And I'm going to start with talking about oppression and how women in America are affected by that. And that's going to lead into the call of action of what the fuck are we going to do to better ourselves and everything that's happening to us.
What does that look like for you?
What?
The betterment.
The betterment? Losing social media.
Oh, that's a fucking statement.
Focusing on yourself and finding what makes you happy. Not looking at 500 different Instagram models and looking at different relationships like ours and going, I really wish I had that, and going, what can I do to get that? It starts with looking at yourself inwards, recognizing that yes, you have trauma and you are also traumatizing people. It's a lot. And it's gonna be a multi-series things. I'm gonna talk about mothers. I'm gonna talk about single women. I'm gonna talk about stepmothers. That's gonna be grouped in with the moms. I'm gonna talk about women who are CEOs who are trying to maintain a family. It's gonna be a very across the board.
And this is the call to action that stemmed from my men thing that women were like, you need to do one, you need to do one. And you're gonna take it so much further than I did.
Yeah. I have a lot to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I decreased my screen time by 20% this week.
Oh, dope.
I have kept my phone away from me, and I've gotten people to start texting me when they need to talk to me versus sending me messengers so that I don't have to open other apps. Do you really think that Instagram is that big of a detriment to women?
Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
So I worked for 2 soda companies doing back-breaking labor. My spine's fucked because of all the heavy lifting I had to do. I almost created an OnlyFans. Seeing Instagram models posting about how much money they're making and it's so fucking effortless. Why would I not do that when I'm over here killing myself, trying to support myself, paying $2,000 a month for rent? Why not?
Could you imagine how bad that would have sucked if you would have done that and realized that most OnlyFans subscribers make less than $200 a month? And it definitely would have prevented you from ever being with me.
Oh, yeah. You know how depressing it is to get 100 photos for 99 cents on my OF? Really? That's what you're selling yourself for is 99 cents?
Damn, that's like dollar store shit.
Yeah.
The reason that I asked about the social media thing is because I know that there's been psyops done against the consumers, and that they have made us depressed, and they've admitted it.
Yeah.
But they sell us everything that they sell us based off of we're not good enough. And then you find yourself mindlessly scrolling for hours on end, trying to find something to make you happy. The longer they keep you on the app, the more you consume advertisements, and they're able to sell you.
Yeah.
And then they sell your data to other companies about how long you've looked at an ad, which ads you've clicked on, your demographics. This is a very interesting thing when you really break down what they sell.
Right.
But I also agree 100% that social media is going to be the downfall of us as a whole. And because of social media, we have Tinder and hookup culture. I don't believe, obviously there were one-night stands and players and shit back in the day, but it became prevalent with the greater connection, the greater reach of social media.
Yeah.
I think that it destroys who we are as a society, and I think that it's going to get a lot worse. I'm actually excited for you to do your thing.
Yeah.
Because I want to see how much I agree or disagree with.
Okay.
Someone said, I'm going to be honest, I have an OF, but everything on my shit's over $5. Well, you're 5 times more expensive than the value brand.
Yeah.
All right. Is there anything else that you would like to discuss in this before we get into super chats?
No.
That whatever podcast shit and the gotcha moments bothers me.
It makes me nauseated.
I don't think that making somebody look like an idiot is going to further your plight. It's not going to make people feel better. Even in the event that he was educating people that otherwise did not understand what was happening,
right?
The delivery is going to turn a lot of people off to this because there's an arrogance to it and a pompousness and I don't know. I think that a true debate is going to be so much more beneficial than that.
I agree. From my understanding, like I don't watch the podcast. I see clips of it. From my understanding, I am the kind of woman that they talk about on that podcast that they look for. High value men look for, insert me. Not my looks and shit, but like my values and whatnot. The way that I treat my husband.
Excuse me, bitch? What? You are banging. Do not disrespect my woman's looks.
Okay.
I am not okay with that. You are upper echelon.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Okay. Thank you.
You are exactly the woman that men on those podcasts want.
So as a woman watching that, I tell you constantly, I'm proud to be your wife.
Right.
Never. Brian, no, you're not it. The woman that you preach about, from my understanding, I'm assuming, like I said, I've never watched the content. From assuming if that's the kind of woman that you preach about that you are looking for in society, and that's what high value men are looking for. As a high value woman, I am not impressed by you.
I don't know if he's ever actually claimed to be a high value man.
Yeah.
I do know that he's had some high value. I hate that fucking term.
Yeah. All of the high value men I've seen on that podcast are not it. I'm good. No, thank you. You're like Monopoly money.
You know that the advent of the high value man and that term being thrown around puts an emphasis on a man's money, which further instigates the gold digger mindset for certain types of women.
Can you repeat that for me?
Okay. So the high value man conversation is only prevalent within the last 2 years.
Right.
having that high value man and the emphasis being on the income and the entrepreneurship and the business side of that man, it instills more gold diggership tendencies in the women who chase those men. So if you put high value man on a good father, a blue collar worker, a man who fucking works from sun up to sundown, like
one day off a week,
right, kills himself to make sure his family thrives, that changes the entire concept of what a high value man is and what a woman is looking for in a high value man. Because now she's looking for a protector, a provider, a husband, a leader, a father. That is a much stronger argument to me than somebody having worth because they have a bankroll. Because you can have a bankroll and be a complete fucking scumbag.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what's happening right now, but I just saw the chat say, it's me, Jessica.
Hey guys, if you enjoyed that, found it entertaining, funny, or even learned something you didn't know before, share it. And if you're not subscribed, why aren't you? And for those of you who want to support us, get access to exclusive content and live streams, we do have a Patreon. All the links are in the description.